But somehow we thought if you add a Republican to a Democrat and then divide by 2, you find truth. And that's absolute goddamn nonsense. That's not true whatsoever. And so the American people have been hoodwinked into this mentality through a marketing strategy by Fox News, and we have to get out of it.
But CNN started it. It's about monetization, about our news cycle, and about our news system.
Well, who started it? I mean, you can go back as long as journalism has ever existed.
That's true. We did
What up, world? And welcome back to another deep, thoughtful episode of the Amer Podcast.
Deep Thoughts of the Amer Podcast.
We should totally do a Deep Thoughts segment.
Deep Thoughts by Jack Handy, right?
Yeah.
Like on SNL.
We can do it right now. Quick, deep thought by everybody. Go, Tyler.
Guinea pigs are neither from Guinea nor pigs.
Whoa. Is that a straight quote?
That's another SNL reference.
I can't beat that.
All right. Tyler wins. 1,000 points to Tyler.
Tyler wins. Oh, we're keeping points this game? Let's go. I'm ready.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode 142 of the Amer Podcast. We are here. It's Thursday, March 11th, 2021, and we have the original crew in the house this evening. What up? That's right. I think we were missing one John Kelly last time, so it's nice to have your face on your first.
I think it's been a couple weeks since we had a full crew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has been a little while. Yeah. Happy 1 year anniversary of nationwide lockdowns, grinding halts.
Let me cheers to you with some water, because that's the amount that this gets.
Oh, it's bad luck to cheers with water.
Is it?
Well,
bucket.
I think it's some cultures, but
what's going to happen?
If you don't
pandemic
drink.
Or something? It'll be fine.
Don't say that. The variants will come and kill us all.
Oh, man. Oh, boy. And not taking a drink after cheersing or knocking on wood is Mr. John Anderson in the Denver metro area. How's it going,
I am
sir?
knocking on wood, and this actually, I have a new desk. I got my grandmother's writing desk, which makes me feel super cool. So I just knocked on that wood, and so all karma has been restored, I'm told, by myself.
Bang.
John
like
redeeming himself with a solid wood. And also in the Denver metro area, Mr. John Kelly. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. Glad to be back. Glad to share some thoughts with everybody this evening.
Nice to see you. Nice to have you back on your first video podcast experience.
True, I missed the first one. I hope all of our listeners checked it out. Got to see all our beautiful faces.
That's right.
Just to let everybody know, Kelly will always be looking the freshest out of this group.
That's true.
We're quite motley. Kelly's fresh.
That's right.
Yeah,
you're lucky if I'm wearing pants during these things.
And our West Coast correspondent, Mr. Tyler Grillo. Hello, sir. How's it going?
Yeah, good. You know, just doing great. Continuing to win card games. Continuing to just, show people who are inferior in competition that they are indeed inferior, because I am always victorious. And
have you not been on a podcast since that happened?
No, I forgot to mention it in the last one, and then earlier today I was listening to another one that I was not on when you referenced it again, and it reminded me.
I hit it again.
yeah, like an asshole. So yeah.
It's pretty nice to drop that smack talk in a little bit, for sure.
That's right.
Well, yeah, it's prime time to do it when they're not there.
Today,
they can't defend themselves.
Today, my partner Lauren was like, but like, as an Aries, like when you are competitive and someone like doesn't pick you or something, or doesn't think you're good, don't you want to get like, doesn't that make you want to prove yourself to them and like beat them? I'm like, no. See, because I already know I'm the best. I have nothing to prove to these people. I will just keep doing what I'm doing, because eventually I will win. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a terrible person.
my ego will not allow me to think that I didn't get picked for a certain reason. That's
it's not my problem, it's their problem.
Yeah. All I'm saying is I would have been a ruthless capitalist, but that is neither here nor there today.
You're just a ruthless socialist.
I'm just a ruthless socialist.
Tyler, you're young. There's still plenty of time.
Ooh, hey, Tyler is the Stalin of this podcast. We'll just put we'll just leave it at that.
No, we made shirts about it.
It's my energy, which is why Diamond Hands to the Moon, the stonks. We're going to take it all down. We're going to take it down. Anyways.
We're going to take it down right to COVID town, ladies and gentlemen.
And who are you, Blake?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I always forget. What's up, guys? My name's Blake Mannion, and I'm your host today and in the past and probably for the foreseeable future for the life of this podcast.
Who's sponsoring the guardrails tonight?
Yeah, who's our sponsor, Blake?
This is, I call it a vodkucha. Vodkombucha.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, it sounds like a good beverage / maybe sexual position.
It's at the very last page of the Kama Sutra.
Velaki Vodkucha. Okay, all right.
Is that the newest home remedy to stop COVID?
The vodka.
Yeah, you just add a little bleach in there and you're good.
Yeah.
Whoa, hold on.
Don't take mental advice from the pod.
Right. Bleach is actually the street term for liquid cocaine. But yes, moving on. Think about it. If like Trump really was referring to liquid cocaine when he said to inject bleach into your veins, can you imagine? Wow.
He might not have been wrong in that case. Anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like some of his family members took him seriously.
No.
Don Jr.
Little Don Jr. action. Hell yeah.
Let's start with maybe some stimulus news, since we touched on that a little bit last time, but Biden just signed the package.
That's right.
It. And I would also like to note that he got the Republicans to say that his package is too big.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Also true. Also very true. Also very true.
And Joe Manchin. Oh, well, sort of Joe Manchin.
But I mean, I think it's important, right? We're in the first few months of a new presidency, and you don't want to necessarily say that this could be the defining legislation that comes out of a presidency, but this is pretty important. And after the inaction that really happened all of last year from the start of the COVID pandemic in terms of, debates in the House and the Senate about what the right limit to checks should be for people, how we should help small businesses. I think it was pretty impressive that it got passed this quickly. I honestly kind of thought that it might not, even with Democrats controlling both the House and the Senate.
Yeah, and the last several, I'm trying to see if I can find the exact thing on this, but I found this very surprising. The bill passed, what is it, like day 53 or something of the Biden presidency, and all the other presidents, their first major, all of the last several, like 5 or 6 presidents, their first major piece of legislation passed in the hundreds of days. And so they got this done fast, and it's humongous. I mean, $1.9 trillion is a lot of money. Yeah, in 2008, we couldn't get it over $1 trillion, and it definitely needed to be. So
yeah,
we're putting a whole lot of money into the economy right now.
Yeah, I just hope that we don't get hit like from the side by something like the collapse of the student loan debt bubble collapsing, or like another mortgage 2008 style. That would put us over the top at this point,
Well, then maybe we can just repeal some tax cuts.
Yeah, or maybe Wall Street bets will just crash the whole stock market.
Speaking of which, it's pretty great to see that the top 1% aren't benefiting from this stimulus package in the same ways that they did benefit from the stimulus that was passed by Congress last year.
Yeah. This is primarily going to individuals as opposed to that package, which primarily went to businesses, which is a pretty good representation of the two parties, I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. And to me, it's actually really disappointing because a stimulus package like this was the one that everybody needed last year when really the economy was in the dumps and everybody was really, truly struggling. And now that we have a vaccine that's pushing through in a lot of states and there's a semblance of normalcy that probably will happen by summer, that what the Republicans were thinking about in terms of helping businesses get back on their feet and making sure that they stay afloat, and a lot of that initial bill would have been a lot better now, right? It's just too bad that the parties are so divided. You're right. It's exactly what you meant, John, is that they're so divided that they couldn't be like, what's best for right now? Right. And then we can do a different bill in the future that's best for everybody at that point.
Well, I think it shows priorities, right? Like Democrats have a priority for individuals and Republicans have a priority for businesses. I think that in the best case, reasonable people could disagree about what is most effective. But I don't think that it was the best case last time, as we saw by like lots of millionaires getting lots of money and they didn't need it from PPP, right? So, it is I think we should take this into the future elections. And also, I really, really like the messaging coming out of the administration, specifically about bipartisanship, because, a lot of people are saying, well, it passed with 0 Republican votes. And they're like, it's a bipartisan bill because 70% of Americans support it. So I don't care about your, Kristen Cinemas or whatever. I care about Joe the plumber.
Right.
And so I think that's
yeah, and I still think that it's the vote difference there is mainly because Republicans are still just saying we're gonna stand hardline, right? We know we don't have the votes to really challenge it, and so we can still make a political statement here and have it pass, and still have it benefit our constituency without having to vote yes on it.
One Republican congressman tweeted out I think yesterday or the day before, like, oh, look, all this money going to my district. And it's like, bro, you didn't vote for this. Get the fuck out of here. And they did that. So many people who voted against TARP in 2008 and 9 did that. And they all went to like the ribbon cutting ceremonies, and it's like, get the fuck out of here, guys. So Kelly, I think you're right. They're making a political calculation, and the Republicans in the Senate led by Mitch McConnell have been making political calculations on legislation since at least 2008. And they have been hurting Americans and hurting the country by doing that. And it's really, really sad. It's a problem, and I think it's another example of political or party asymmetry, because Democrats are not playing that same game. Democrats voted for that last bill under Trump, even though it probably helped everybody's political outcomes, because turns out the Democratic Party cares about individuals.
And I would just like to name names, just like we did for good old Cory Gardner last year. But the new Cory Gardner is definitely Miss Lauren Boebert, who voted against the package.
Of course she did. Yeah. She's a special one. We're gonna help get her out of office in 2022.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But it does seem like this stimulus is going to the people who really need it most, and that's what's most important. And it's sad that it took this long to happen. Like, all the fighting that happened, how Trump held this hostage as part of like his election strategy and all of that. It's just like you were saying, John. It's just really sad that like something like this is the Republicans are willing to play politics with it.
Let me say something nice about Trump. He then came out for $2,000 checks. That's after he blew up the deal. So
I know.
It was remarkable, but I think this is
the art of the deal, John. You blow up first. You must like destroy the deal in order to create the deal, John.
Okay, Stu.
That's great.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
but
it's backwards, but
I will say though that was a just political calculation that made absolutely no sense from no matter where you come at it. Yeah. From what was happening when Trump came back out against the Republican Party to announce his own $2,000 check. What it shows is that, what we've been saying for a long time, which is that Trump is in it for himself. He cares about power for himself. He doesn't really care about the two-party politics. He doesn't really care about the Republican Party. He doesn't really care about the Democratic Party. And he saw an opportunity and was like, I can go ahead and make this better, right? I can make my popularity up a little bit, and he knows it's not going to pass. $2,000. Everybody's going to get $2,000 with my name on it. It's great, right?
He just played a president on television. He wasn't an actual president. But I think that this is important to remember, because as we hopefully exit the era of Trump, and a lot of people say this, and I think it's really important to continue to hammer at home, the Republican Party is the problem. Yes. Donald Trump is a symptom of the greater problem. And that $2,000 check thing really shows it, because no Republican was for that shit. And Trump was, because, again, he plays president on television. And so we need to keep that in mind when we're, casting votes in 2022, that one party is out to help special interests and another party is out to help individuals.
Right. I would definitely love to have a whole episode on the Republican Party and enabling the two sidesism that happens, this two realities, two sides, just it's a whole, you could write a master's thesis on it.
Can we take a little side drive on that?
People do. They're writing them currently.
I don't think that's a Republican Party thing. I think that's a Fox News CNN thing. I think it was a monetization strategy. It was a market share strategy in the 90s for Fox News, and then CNN and other cable news shows adopted it, such as through Crossfire, that show Crossfire that Jon Stewart single-handedly ended. And if you listen to his arguments, it's that's what he's saying. He's like, this. It's not both sides. What we should be talking about, it's not Republican versus Democrat. It's about corrupt versus not corrupt. But somehow we thought if you add a Republican to a Democrat and then divide by two, you find truth. And that's absolute goddamn nonsense. That's not true whatsoever. And so the American people have been hoodwinked into this mentality through a marketing strategy by Fox News, and we have to get out of it.
But CNN started it. It's about monetization, about our news cycle, and about our news system. That's clear.
I think we could maybe do a whole episode on.
I mean, you can go back as long as journalism has ever existed.
That's true. We did have.
There's no such thing as real, true journalism reporting. But I think you make a good point, John, and I think we talk about this often, where it comes to where you have a fair discussion about points. You can't really have it in that type of setting. And unfortunately, too many people get their news and get their understanding from what a discussion should be from that. Right? And that's what it is. You're not going to get fair and balanced media coverage from a panel of people coming together to talk about and try to stoke ratings on a subject.
Yeah. Right. And listeners, if you have never seen the Jon Stewart takedown of Tucker Carlson, because Jon Stewart is old school hating Tucker Carlson, definitely look up that
I'm old school hating Tucker Carlson. I'm old school.
It's when he goes on
I think we're all old school.
And he tells Tucker Carlson that he's an actor. What did he say? He's like, you're an actor. This is theater. And he goes, what do you mean? And Jon Stewart goes, you're wearing a bow tie. he's like you're in your late 20s and you're wearing a bow tie.
It is an epic takedown that happened on live television, and it is one of the most phenomenal things I've ever seen in my life. Well, but I think the issue is that both sides it is implied that one side is Democrats and the other side is Republicans, and that it's just nonsensical. It's a nonsensical way to understand reality, right? Especially if you apply it,
falls into those categories.
Yeah, it's just have you ever heard of other parties in other countries, or have you ever heard of I don't know, time? These things change, And so
unfortunately, it's just been magnified so much by the culture war aspect. The one side versus the other has cemented it
out of it. And so I think, to bring it all back, I really love what the Biden administration is doing, which is saying we are redefining what bipartisanship means. It doesn't mean what happens in the Senate. It means what the American people feel. And I think that's a really, really important thing. We as a society have to get that in our heads, that the truth does not lie somewhere between the two political parties. The truth lies out there in objective reality, right? Yeah. And so we have to go investigate that. And it shouldn't really have anything to do with partisanship at all.
Yeah. I actually love that idea. Like, wouldn't it be great if sometime in our lifetimes, probably wouldn't be a quick change, but sometime in the future, maybe 10, 20 years down the road, is that like all politicians, right? They go, of course, I'm going to do what I think is best for my constituents, right, in my state, my local community, because that's who they are supposed to be representing at the end of the day. But they also go and take a step back and go, oh, there are 70% of the people in this country that would vote for this if they were in my position right now. Right. And so I also have a responsibility to everybody else in this country. I'm still an American, right? Which is what both parties try to stand for. And obviously, I think one party does it better. I won't deny that. But to take a step back and say that, where it's like, I'm going to balance what I think is best for my constituency and best for America in general. Right. And if 70% of people are saying, yes, we want it this way in polls and in really feedback, they actually go that way. Right. Yeah.
And you would
think about it this way. If you look at almost every single poll on gun background checks, it's like 90% approval. However, we will say, oh, it didn't receive any bipartisan support in Congress. And so half the country, quote unquote, doesn't believe that. And you're like, no, that's not true. It's half of the politicians that have been captured by the gun manufacturer lobby that we call the NRA, that we somehow think represents... Yeah, thank God, that we somehow think represent, quote, normal gun owners, which is not true, because if they did, normal gun owners are also for background checks, a majority of them. And so we need to get out of this mentality of partisanship equaling what happens in Congress. Partisanship is what happens in the country.
Yeah, I always find that interesting, and there's a lot written about this, about the about the "I felt threatened" move, and it's very interesting because the thing is, like, that may be true. And why do you think you felt threatened by a kid without a gun, without a weapon? Could it have been because of their skin color? And why would that be, right? And so what's so interesting is there's this whole narrative of like on the right, like, fuck your feelings, blah 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 blah. But I felt threatened, and therefore that justifies murdering someone. Well, you know what? Fuck your feelings then in that particular situation.
Right. Oh yeah, 100%.
And to bring it back to COVID, you don't want to wear a mask because you think your liberties. Well, fuck your liberty. Fuck your feeling that your liberties are being stomped on. Right? If we really want to go down that of like, fuck your feelings about this, like, oh, so you don't want to wear a mask because it makes you feel uncomfortable for a little bit. Oh, right.
You know what?
Those are kind of two different ideas of liberties, right?
Yeah. I tried,
but I get what you're saying.
Well, no. You know what makes exercising your liberties really difficult? Being fucking dead. Yeah. And so my right to live outweighs your right not to have a piece of cloth on your face when you go to the grocery store. Sorry. Yeah. Our rights are in conflict, and my right to live is more important than your right to, I don't know, whatever your issue is with the mask.
You guys, this is getting too deep, though. Like, the level of understanding I don't think is there for the people who like don't wear masks. Like, we've already lost.
And this is that polarization, right? Is like, this is where I was trying to go with it. This is like, comes back to this, like, it's a Republican. Like, wearing masks should not be a Democrat and Republican. Exactly. Right? Like, it's just public. It's just public health and public safety. It should not be a partisan issue. and but everything has to become a partisan issue, right? That's the thing, because that is the underlying narrative, and that's how they're going to continue to try to get the votes, is by driving these sort of things. And so where we are now, where I'm just like so fascinated, because I know it's not going to be anything, but it's like all these people, they're taking our liberties. This is part of the grab of our taking the things. And I'm like, well, as far as I can tell, they're lifting masking restrictions in certain places, and like travel. There's like, they're going to restrict your travel, and you're going to have a vaccine card that proves your vaccine in order to cross state lines. I'm like, none of that shit. I don't see any evidence of that actually happening. But this narrative of like, and then it doesn't happen, and then people just forget about it and they move on to the next conspiracy theory, and it can add all up because they never go back and check. You never turn around and go, oh, let me just see how that turned out. Oh, turned out that didn't happen at fucking all.
Right. It was 100% bullshit. I never went back and checked my own personal opinion enough to look myself in the mirror and say, I was wrong. I should have rethought that. Yeah. Let me readjust my viewpoint.
What it is just bad information.
I'm an American. I don't have to go back and think about things like that.
Yeah. Like a lot of that whole, you're not going to be allowed to go anywhere unless you have a COVID vaccine card, right? That isn't 100% true, but as far as like private businesses go, like a cruise ship or certain hotels or clubs or restaurants or dining experiences,
laissez-faire capitalism, right?
That's capitalism.
Businesses can fucking do what they want. If a competitor can just come up and not require it, so like fuck it, who gives a shit?
Also, this isn't unprecedented. I forget what disease it is, but international travel requires vaccine cards.
Yeah,
all the time.
100%.
Yeah, I fucking have had to present.
You need like measles, mumps, polio vaccines.
It's like people who are like getting vaccines. I'm like, you know how many fucking vaccines I lived in Nepal. Do you know how many fucking vaccines I've had pumped through my body? So many fucking vaccines.
And you look great.
One more.
I don't really good.
I mean, the mRNA thing, because it's different. Like I get that is like it's different. So like that actually makes sense to me. But like I'm just like, well, I'm gonna roll those. You know what? What am I going to do? Die of COVID? Die in a car accident? When am I going to have a heart attack tomorrow? I don't know. Give me the fucking jab.
Right. That's another. Right. Like I love the mask.
I'd rather have the 14th microchip. I already got 13 of them. Put another one in me. That's fine.
I love the mask thing too, because it's like, do you have a driver's license?
Right.
Like we put these reasonable restrictions in. Do you have car insurance?
Right.
Do you wear a seatbelt when you're in your car?
But John, it's the same political discussion that was happening in the 50s, where it's like, what, you're gonna force people to wear seatbelts? Aren't I an American? Don't I have the right to just drive my car at 90 miles an hour and plunge it into anybody else without wearing a seatbelt? I think that's my God-given right.
And that proves the point, right? Which is everybody just relax. It's okay. My right not to die from you being a stupid moron on the road outweighs your right to not wear a seatbelt or not have car insurance.
Yeah.
So
but but that's the first point. The second one is that this is still a debate in this country that basically started with the progressive movement, right? Is where is individual rights and public safety and public health? Where is the correct balance there? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It started all the way back in the 1880s about where we should step back and say, as a society, is it better to protect people or protect someone's right to potentially harm another person just because they can be free to do whatever they want at all times?
And I feel like here's something that the last year has taught me around that, Kelly, which is that those of us who are like, I don't want to be judgy, but what other word is it than reasonable people? Those of us who are just like, I guess, like moderated
rational.
but it's just like people.
Rational is not the right word, but I think moderate.
Moderated is a good word.
Moderate. Like we have more of a responsibility, because there's going to be these, like, it's like there are the fuckheads out there who just refuse to wear the masks and do all the things, and they're going to spread the things. Which just means now I just have to like be more responsible to make up for your ass. You know what I mean? and that's unfortunate. But like I'm like it was a good adult learning of me this last year, where I was just like, oh, so I just have to be more responsible. Because all you assholes out there, it's like every time I see a fucking picture on Instagram of someone like flying on a plane for some shit, I'm like, cool. Well, now I'm gonna like not leave the house. I was gonna go to the liquor store, and now I'm just gonna fucking order on Venmo delivery because I have to offset that fucking shit. You know,
it's very frustrating. Fuck free riders. Fuck them all to hell.
Yeah. And then that's the thing, is that people can see it wasn't that like I didn't get sick. It's like, yeah, but it's because all the fucking
you're welcome.
Other people. Yeah, you're welcome, assholes.
God, it's such a misunderstanding of what it means to be in a society with everybody else, right? Yeah. You can't just live your life as a lone wolf. I'm on an island type of person,
unless you're literally honestly, alone on an island.
Yeah,
right.
Right, exactly. Right, exactly. But so many people, especially I think in certain parts of the body politic in our country, and I'm thinking a lot right now specifically about like libertarian thought process, right, is their idea is that everybody's on an island all the time, right? Our government, our societal structure should really just be so there are some checks there, but mostly everybody can do what they want to make sure that they can pursue the happiness that they want, right? They have completely stepped away from the idea of we live in a society together. There's a social contract between all of us that we're here and living in, and their idea of a social contract is kind of every man for himself. Yeah. And so it's unsurprising that then their policy goals and objectives and their idea of government plays out that way.
Right.
When they think of, if everybody's in it for themselves, everybody's in it for themselves. There is no societal cohesion. There's no even goal to try to get there.
I think a good kind of flippant description of this is freedom of religion is really important in this country, right? But you do not have the freedom to human sacrifice. Right. And so even if it's part of your religion, because that human also has rights. And so, Kelly, like libertarians think every individual is on an island, which I think is a fundamental misunderstanding of how humanity works. And so we have to understand that you are a rock that gets thrown into the pond and you ripple around and you influence the people around you. And if you haven't realized that yet, you should probably figure it out pretty quick because it's important. And so this is why, like, especially when we have a contagious disease, we have to take care of each other. And I'm sorry, but your freedoms are going to be a little bit not what they were during this because we have to take care of each other. It's not a government power grab, it's public health.
Yeah, and now we're just in the same conversation with vaccines, right? So I think it's going to be announced. Biden's going to announce shortly, I believe. We saw before this that, or did he already announce that?
It's the speech that's maybe happening.
I think it was scheduled for 8 Eastern, so I think it already happened.
I think it's happening.
We'll come to you live right now from Biden.
Hot take
that vaccines are going to be available for every adult in the U.S. by May 1st. So like, but we're going to be at the same thing where people are going to be like, I'm not injecting myself. We're like, cool. Well, then like the rest of us will, so that there's like enough, herd immunity from it that we can just do all the things. So
I mean, that's the history of vaccines too, though.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of people who didn't want to get vaccines in the 50s because of polio. They didn't call it the same thing. They didn't say it was a government conspiracy to try to kill people or chip people. They were just like, I don't want you injecting something into my body that I don't know what it is. It's always been that way.
And they did have huge, information campaigns then to help clear that up.
Yes. Yes, the public health campaigns were hands above so much better back then.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And because like racism's terrible on all of the levels, they like tested a bunch of shit on black and brown communities without their knowledge also. So like there is like
also true.
There is some bad shit that happened in the past, and now it's not necessarily getting equally distributed or equitably distributed right now either. But I mean, like I have someone say, they're like, you mean I don't get a chip? They're like, fucking chip me. They were like, hook me up to that Tesla satellite, baby. Like, let's go. Like, what are you talking about? I want the fucking chip. So,
that sounds
5G
like
yeah.
Sounds like some stupid space communism right there, Tyler. Sounds like some stupid space communism right there.
Fully automated luxury Gay-based communism, yes, me. But you
that's
know,
funny.
listen, and it's not an American problem either. You know, added to the list of the reasons Gandhi sucked. I don't know if you know, pedophile, sexist, nationalist, also anti-vaxxer.
No way. Gandhi was an anti-vaxxer? Man,
yeah, and then
don't
like later
learn
in his life,
about
he
your
was like,
heroes.
later in his life, he was like, "Oh, I'm really it makes me sad seeing all these kids die of measles. Maybe he's like, I second guess if I should have told all their parents not to get them vaccinated."
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
Maybe.
but
Maybe, Gandhi.
this is where the historical context is important about that, right?
Right.
Like, don't misjudge like Gandhi about his whole body of work, right? On just the anti-vaxxer stance, he did it for specific anti-colonial reasons against
Yes.
the British government that was there, right?
That's right.
He was saying that they should not take the vaccine because the British government developed it, and they've
Yeah.
been oppressing us for centuries. Even though, you know, at the core of it, the British government was like, "Yeah, we just want to eradicate measles," right?
Yeah.
You know,
Don't,
and I think you can give him a check on that. It sucks, right?
Yeah.
Because people did suffer and people did end up dying because he was untrusting of
He was
that
a leader.
level of public health.
And they listened
But-
to him.
Yeah,
you know.
no. Get you know, don't cancel him for that. Cancel him because he was a pedophile. But that's,
There it is. Yeah.
yeah,
But you
yeah.
know, speaking of cancel culture, I gotta say, I kind of do love this whole cancel culture movement that's happening because in some ways it's like it has to happen. You know, for example, we need cancel culture to cancel businesses like this one that posted a couple days ago, Kava Sutra Kava Bar, saying effective immediately, any and all grade school teachers who by choice have opted not to return to in-person teaching are hereby banned from any and all Kava Sutra Kava Bar locations. Furthermore, masks may not be worn in Arizona or Florida locations. New York and Colorado are a bunch of pussy leftists, so they can cover their mouths with the dirty cloth. I just want to express, like, these guys are going to get canceled hard. Like, the majority of people who drink kava, if you don't know what it is, it's like a coffee substitute. Hippies love it. Hippies created it.
Right. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the majority of their demographic that goes to their kava bar are probably teachers and hippies. So
I would
like cancel
assume, yeah.
culture. Like I gotta say, at first I was like, oh, what is this? I don't know about, but it's actually pretty genius. It's kind of like nature's way of just eradicating leadership on.
I have mixed feelings about the cancel culture, but I will, because I think that where it gets sticky is it's like if you don't cancel something, then you get canceled because you didn't cancel the thing. That's where I think it goes too far.
True.
But everybody has the agency to make their own choice, and absolutely, there are certain things that we all just need to cut out of our lives because that is part of life, and it's not worth. To quote the Situation, Mike, the Situation, Sorrentino, it's called "Fuck You," and there's so many other people in the world.
This goes kind of ties back to Gandhi in that he was a leader and people listened to him, and it was bad leadership, and so like a lot of children died. And so, unfortunately, cancel culture didn't exist back then. Otherwise, maybe he would have gotten canceled for that. You know?
Well, but he did kick the British. He did kick the British out.
He canceled the British Empire.
Yeah, he canceled the British Empire, which that was great.
Like the
Probably
term
wouldn't have
cancel culture, I think it is not a very useful term anymore.
No, it's been co-opted to so many different things that it's everything.
It doesn't
everything
describe.
is
It
cancel
basically
culture.
it describes like activity I don't like is basically what cancel culture is. Another way to say cancel culture in a lot of contexts is accountability.
Yeah,
Which I think is
100%.
really important. And so if a group of people want to use their economic power to hold institutions accountable, I think that sounds fucking awesome. I think that's great. I think that's what Martin Luther King Jr. did in Montgomery against the public transportation system.
Yeah.
So, yes, can it get out of control? Yeah. Can it, like, I totally agree, Tyler, that like canceling people for not canceling people, like there's kind of a bandwagon tribal mentality that gets there. But in a lot of situations, like when we're talking about, oh, don't watch that television show and tell people not to watch that television show so they lose their sponsors, so they get taken off the air. That sounds like activism to me. Like, that sounds pretty fucking rad to me. That sounds like people taking agency and accountability for their society. And I think that's great in a lot of ways. So let's all settle down on what cancel culture.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%, John. I agree with you 100%. And, you know, at the end of the day, every person has the right to spend their money how they want, to talk to people how they want, and to discuss ideas how they want, right? The idea of like that the cancel culture is that our First Amendment rights are being sacrificed because there's no guarantee, right? Which is so funny to me because it's so many people on the right being like, we're getting canceled. And you're like, you believe in 1, free market capitalism, and 2, free speech. You've exercised your free speech, and now because you acted like an asshole, people don't want to pay you for shit anymore. And so
turns out the market doesn't like that.
Because you're not being able to get paid for the thing that you thought you were good at enough to get paid for, you're now getting canceled. Guess what? Yes, you are getting canceled. That's what it is. If people don't want to pay you to hear your shit anymore, that's what it is. You know, like it's so funny to me, right? Like this last week, I saw a bunch of stuff, right, about like Gen Z is going to cancel Eminem. He's going to be the next cancel culture victim because of stuff that he said in raps 10, 15 years ago. Anybody who's ever listened to Eminem, one, knows that he's obviously offensive to a bunch of people, and a lot of his raps are. But two, dude's going to sell out stadiums as soon as they're allowed to have people back into stadiums. It doesn't matter if Gen Z doesn't go and see his shows, right?
Yeah. Also, he's like getting old. Like every artist gets canceled by younger generation. Like that's how it
always happens. Always happens. You're relevant in the marketplace for maybe 3-4 years, maybe if you're fucking lucky.
Newsflash:
right?
We're all gonna get canceled by life when we fucking die.
Right? Yeah. Some dude from Slipknot telling me that I need to be more open to free speech because people don't want to go to his shows anymore, and you're like, dude, you haven't been culturally relevant for fucking years anyway, and so I'm sorry, but people are still going to come to your show. You're just not going to make more money at this point.
And that's where free speech, quote, free speech is another term that's like not very useful anymore because it's been co-opted to mean like I get to be on television and Twitter without consequences.
Yeah,
and it's like it means that the government can't throw you in jail for your opinions.
Yeah,
we all have a social contract here. If I don't want to, if I'm going to hold you accountable for being a douchebag, I'm going to do so.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll cancel you myself.
You're impinging on my rights. And again, we get back to it where I think a lot of these people are like, oh my God, my rights, my rights, my rights. And it's like, your rights are influencing my rights, which means I get to care about your rights and I get a say in. So let's put on a mask.
With great freedom comes great responsibility, friends.
Exactly.
Come on.
And if we can't handle it, you don't get the freedom.
Well,
that's the other part of that.
That's right. That's right. Well, why don't we just cancel COVID, everybody? You know, we're 1 year in. It's
get
time
that
to
vaccine, baby.
Get that vaccine, get that jab, you know, keep the masks on until the science says that we good, you know, to keep doing things. Like, come on. We're so fucking close. We're so fucking close.
And especially, you know, if the number of vaccines, the supply of vaccines continues to increase the way that, you know, the federal government thinks by May 1st, and everybody can get it in the adult population, man, we can kick this thing quick. Hopefully it's good enough to really stop the variants, and there are going to be some really long-term stuff with that, but the light's at the end of the tunnel at this point.
Yes.
We've all been there for the last full year, right? But the light is at the end of the tunnel.
One thing to note about that May 1st date is that's when we will have supply, but it doesn't really matter unless it's in arms. And so we're going to need to ramp that capacity up too. We better be doing fucking 24-hour vaccinations. I will get my ass up at 3 a.m. I'll drive to goddamn Nebraska to get that vaccine, and we all owe it to each other to do that. I think it's important that we take care of each other in that way. Because if we've learned one thing over the course of this year, it's that it is going to happen together. If we fail or if we succeed, it is going to be together. As Martin Luther King said, we might have all come over in different ships, but we're in the same boat now. So Godspeed, folks.
I like
Swish.
that. That's
Swish.
the way to end it.
Wish.
John saw the wrap up signal and he's like, I'm ending this now.
I was like, Martin Luther King quote activated. Boom.